Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. It's so great to have you. As I like to do, I want to go ahead and remind everyone to save the date for our next industry update. November, the first Thursday of the month, we're going to have Jill Cox on, and he's going to be talking about the contracts and form changes for 2023. He says you do not need to take a full-blown contracts class. There are not that many changes. So he's just going to touch on all those changes quickly in that hour next month. So definitely join us for that one. Register if you can't join, and we'll send you the recording, and then you'll be totally up to speed on all the contract changes for 2023. And then with that, I want to roll in and give a big warm welcome and a huge thank you to Mike Simonsen with Altos Research, who is our guest speaker today. We're so thrilled to have him. I'm going to let him really dive into Altos and what they do, but in short, Altos Research is a company that tracks every single property that sells in the United States every single week. And so they are staying really on the pulse of what's happening in the real estate market much sooner than any other resources that are out there. So Mike is a statistician and a data guy, and he's really watching what is happening in the market. And that's really the big question right now that brokers are facing. What's happening and what's going to happen with our market? It feels a little uncertain right now. So he's going to help us answer some of those questions today. So please put any questions that you have in the Q&A. Lael from his team, like he mentioned, is here as well to help out. And with that, I don't want to take any more time away. Let's let Mike take it from here and share with us his words of wisdom.
Awesome. Thank you, Jill. And that was terrific introduction. So I am Mike Simonsen, and my company is Altos Research. We track every home for sale in the country and all the pricing and supply and demand, and we bubble up those analytics to make it available to you before you see it in the traditional channels. We're going to talk about a bunch of data today. I'm going to look at national data, and then we will also dive into some Colorado stuff. And I have a few different Colorado reports. I'm going to share my screen, and we will go here. And so there are big trends happening. There's some. The slides will be national data, and then I have some Colorado data pulled up, and I'll try to point out where Colorado is the same, but also where Colorado is different from the national trends. The big things that are really interesting is what's going to happen to inventory for the rest of the year. Inventory was super low. It spiked up very quickly in the spring. What do we know, and what's going to happen for next year? Is there going to be a big flood of homes available? Is that going to mean more pressure for sellers? What do all those things on the inventory side mean? I'm also going to spend a little time with pricing and what we know about pricing and how the changes in demand can tell us about where home prices are going to be in the next year and the rest of the year, and then what we can already see for 2023. When I do these kind of conversations, I like to spend a little bit of time. I will try to use when we talk about the data, how to use the data in conversations with buyers and sellers right now. Everybody's afraid. And so using the data to help calm those fears. And they're afraid of financial markets, and they're afraid of uncertainty, and they're afraid of recessions, and they're afraid of inflation. All of these crazy things are happening right now. And so we'll try to frame that a little bit as we're looking at the data, not just looking at the data, but also how to talk about it right now. And then we'll wrap up with some of the Colorado markets, and we'll dive into some specific data there. As I said, Lael is in the chat, and so if you have questions along the way, we'll be able to take it there. The biggest thing to start with right now is interest rates. We had this crazy spike in mortgage rates. In this chart here, every color here is a different year. You can see the year starts. We started at around 3% on the 30-year, and we spiked up through into July. Then July and August, rates actually ticked down a little bit, back around 5%. And we could see home buyers taking action at that time. You could see that inventory stopped skyrocketing. We could see that there were some transactions happening. Now, in the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, mortgage rates have shot back up a dramatic amount again. And we can really see the buyers stop cold in a lot of places. And so that is really the headline of, as we're talking about the data for the early October, it's what is the impact that these recent big spikes in mortgage rates have had. And so, you can see at the right end of the chart over here, the brown part is like, that's this year, and we can see it jump up, but we can actually see it recede a little bit for the late summer. And now we've got a new spike. And I'll show you that this little, the little, where the last spike hits was really the first week of September. And we can look at an inflection point in the data at that time nationally. It's really powerful, and it really tells us what it leads us to observe is that that August, July and August, rates went from almost 6 and then back down to around 5. And it was that moment when they jumped from 5 over 5.5 to 6, 6.5, now even close to 7. But that 5.5% on a 30-year fixed feels like the threshold that consumers were recognizing, that they, above that, we have affordability challenges, we have worries about payments, you have significantly fewer people who can buy the homes that are as they're priced right now. And so as we're looking forward, as you're looking towards 2023, what's going to happen next spring, it's going to be like, that is potentially a threshold to pay attention to. So if we watch rates come back down, it'll feel like the buyers probably have room. There's enough people that are well employed. People, despite fears about recession, employment is very high right now. So people have jobs, and as a result, they can do transactions. But when we've jumped from 5.5 to 7, that's when we notice the big slide. So that'll be the thing to keep our eye on as we look to how is 2023 going to play out. If we go into 2023 and rates are at 7 or higher, that's going to be a significantly lower, fewer transactions can happen, and prices are going to, they're going to have to adjust to that. When we're, a year ago, and mortgage rates are at 2.9%, even though you could see rates climbing and you could see the potential for, the market to slow this year, it was really hard for me to even envision 7%, not even anywhere in my scope. You could imagine 4.5, 5, but 7 is really foreign. And so I don't think any of the forecasting models really had anticipated that much. And that's a big deal. And that's what we're facing right now. By the way, while I talk about the data today, as I mentioned, I like to try to help about talking about how you can use the data in your conversations and use the data in your business. We've created a free ebook with Altos that is how to use market data in your real estate business. There are in this book, and there's a link, and Lael will post the link in the chat to go download it. There's scripts and ideas, strategies when to use the data, how to use it with buyers, how to use the data when you're at a listing presentation with sellers. Those are all captured in the ebook. And so as I'm talking about the stats, especially if there's some that are a little more unusual, ones you maybe don't think about from time to in your business, you can get the detail in that ebook, and it's really great. So it's free. Go click through and knock yourself out. So that's really good there. And so that's all the way as we're talking about the data. All right, so let's do some national data, look at the country, and then we'll switch over to Colorado on the second half. So the big trend in inventory, this is a chart of the last 7-8 years of inventory in the US. You can see that each year inventory peaks lower and lower, fewer and fewer homes available on the market at any given time. And really the reason that is because Americans, mostly individuals, have taken a lot of resale homes and kept them for investment properties. A lot of times it's I move and I'm going to go buy, move up or move down. I'm going to go buy my next home. And when rates are 4% or 3%, even 4.5%, like it's a really good deal. It's been a really good deal to keep that last one as an investment property. Now I have a small investment portfolio. I don't have to resell it because I can do 2 mortgage payments. So as a result, we've taken homes out of resale and put them into the investment properties. So the investment set, and we have fewer and fewer homes available each year. One of the things to notice in here is, like, now that mortgage rates are higher again, for really the first time in like 15, 20 years, how are investors going to react to that? We can see a little bit of a hint in 2018. So right in the middle of this chart, between 2018 and 2019, mortgage rates climbed in 2018 from like 3.9 to 4.9%. And what happened was, you can see the little low trough January of 2018, and then to January 2019 is a little higher. Meaning what happened was, at that time, rates are now at 4.9%, and it makes sense for fewer of those investment transactions to happen. So more of the homes, like I have to sell my first home to buy my second one. I can't keep the one for an investment property. And so we can see that that because mortgage rates climbed by 1%, like at 1 point, you can see that inventory climbed for the first time in the decade, the only time in the decade that happened. Year over year inventory was higher in January after a year of climbing mortgage rates in 2018. So it shouldn't be a surprise when 2023 has more inventory than we did in 2022. And you can see we're ultra few. These are single family homes. So right now there's 561,000 single family homes on the market across the country. It'll be about 565 probably when we report the numbers next Monday, climbing a little bit. So it's higher than last year at this time, when it was only 428. And just right the same as the beginning of the pandemic 2 years ago, it was when inventory was just falling dramatically through the early pandemic. But you can also see that nationally, inventory is still only about 40% of where it was in just 2019. So we still have dramatically fewer homes on the market than we did even 3 years ago. So there's a couple of things to think about as we're talking to buyers and sellers right now. They very often are paying attention to mortgage rates, and they're paying attention to financial markets. And so I find that there's a lot of buyers or sellers out there who are assuming that the market is tanking, blowing up. They're assuming that because mortgage rates are climbing, and because there's a recession looming, that there's going to be a lot of sellers that are going to flood the market. And there are buyers who've been waiting with cash, waiting to swoop in and get the bargains that they haven't had for years. And what we can see is, that yes, rising mortgage rates is going to lead to more inventory, like it did in 2018, 2019. And it has already this year. But we also know that we're still 40% less than normal. And if you look even a few, like the left end of the chart here, we had 1.2 million homes on the market in 2015. This time, like, we have way more homes And so it is significantly fewer. So that implies that the while you'll have a better buying opportunity than you did at the beginning of this year when it was just crazy, there isn't any signal of a big flood of homes. There's no 2008 market crash because everyone in the country, all these people along this chart that have bought their homes all over the last decade, they have ultra low mortgages. They're locked in at 2.6% or 3% or 3.5%. And so they don't have to sell. They also have their jobs right now. So people make their mortgage payments. And what we noticed was in August, we can see that at the far right end of the chart here, there's a little dip. You can see inventory started actually falling in August because sellers were like, well, it's definitely slower. I've got a ton of equity. I've got an ultra cheap mortgage locked in forever. I got my job. I don't need to sell. And so inventory stopped climbing because people were buying what was there, and there's fewer homes on the market. And so that's really, the big message is, buyers who are thinking, or buyers who are waiting to like vulture swoop in, is that we can see that, yes, there's more opportunity than there was. But no, there's no signal, no signal of a big wave of new inventory. And we can look at a forecast. So in this chart, we have each line here is a year, and you can see the curve. It's fewer homes for sale in the beginning of the year, peaks later in the year, like typically peaks in August, but sometimes might peak as late as October. So the 2018 is the dark blue line here, and it peaked in the middle of October. So 2 weeks from now in 2018. And then inventory started falling back. And so we can see the dotted line there that's this year and the rest of this year. Right now, there's 561,000 single family homes, and we can see this little inflection point. So inventory had started falling in through August, and then at this first, second, third of September, rates started spiking again. They went over 5.5, they went to 6. And so then we can see this little inflection point, and inventory started climbing again. And so you can really see nationally buyers reacting to that change. What it means is that inventory is likely going to fall through the end of the year. It's got a few more weeks to climb. And it means we'll probably end the year maybe 490, 500,000 single family homes on the market. Still a lot fewer than 2019. We started at 850,000 single family homes, but a lot more than the last couple of years. So that's how it's going to feel different. These are week by week mortgage inventory forecasts based on fewer people list and sell in November, and so that like inventory is generally going to fall. If inventory keeps climbing, and you can watch our YouTube videos every Monday where I'll report on this. If inventory keeps climbing late October, November, that'll really be like buyers have stopped cold, and that would be really unseasonal, really unusual for inventory to climb in November. And if that happens, that'd be a pretty bearish signal for like transactions that are going to happen in January and prices in the future. So I don't think it's going to happen. We're going to get a few more weeks of climbing inventory because people are not buying, but I do expect we'll have at least some sort of normal behavior in November, December, so it'll curve back down. But you can see that the dotted line doesn't drop as fast as most years. And that's because there's just, a lot fewer buyers happening right now. And then, fingers crossed, interest rates come back down, maybe they spike and maybe they drift back down towards that 5.5% threshold that we observed, and things start loosening up. And we'll see what January has in store for that. If rates spike, then January could start cold, and that'd be a really new set of variables. I should point out that I don't predict mortgage rates. Like, I don't have any idea where mortgage rates are going to go. And I say, like, I bought my first home, and in 1996, and I had an 8.5% rate, and I locked it in for 30 years because I thought I was getting a great deal. And I bought my second home in 2001, and I bought it at 6.5%, and I locked it in for 30 years because I thought I was getting a great deal. My third home I bought, it was 4.5, and now I'm locked in again at under 3, and it's still locked in. But like I have no idea how to predict mortgage rates, and so they could go up from here, they could go down from here. I don't have a view on that. But I do see that consumers sure look like they're reacting to that 5.5% range. And so, you could imagine your buyer sitting on the fence. And as you're watching that, you might, if you see, wow, we're under 5.5%, that might be a good opportunity to start talking with buyers about maybe re-engaging. So that'll be really fascinating to see how that tracks out for the rest of the year. In our forecast, I was really surprised in July and August, that inventory stopped climbing very abruptly. And you can see that the dark red line here, it had a big steep climb. We climbed over last year, and then it went horizontal in the middle of summer. And when rates were down there, in the 5s or close to 5, there was enough transaction happening that stopped, and it really it took me by surprise. So it's really starting to be clear there on where that goes. On the demand side, there is a phenomenon that we tracked during the pandemic that we call immediate sales, and you're probably familiar with it, right? That we had homes that get maybe a little bit of pre-marketing, they get listed, you take offers in that afternoon, or we're going to take offers Thursday, and then it's gone by the weekend and into contract by the weekend, a couple of days, even hours after listing. And earlier this year, peak of our frenzy, we were at about a third of the homes around the country were going into contract essentially immediately after listing. There's always some immediate sales. It's like a really rare property. They're good stuff. They go quickly. There's stuff that have been pre-marketed, and so they officially are going in an immediate sale sense. But so each bar on this chart here is a week over the last couple of years. And the light red portion are the immediate sales, the ones that went into contract essentially immediately. So you can see these are like new listings. The dark red portion of like the new listings that hit the market and didn't go into stayed more than a week. And then the light red portion of the immediate sales. So you can see like it dips around the holidays. You can see a dip for the 4th of July. You can see a dip for Thanksgiving and then the Christmas, New Year's holiday, and then starts ramping back up for the spring. There's a couple of really fascinating things that happen here. After July 4th of this year, so it's at the left side of the chart, you can see it drops dramatically. And so what happened was earlier in this year, in May and June, potential sellers were recognizing that, this market is slowing. If I'm going to sell, I need to list now. And they listed in May and June. And so then July comes and we actually have fewer sellers. So inventory stopped growing. It actually pulled that supply forward into May and June. And so then you can see the bars are dramatically shorter starting July 4th. This is why one of the signals we know that there's not a big flood of listings coming, because sellers stopped. They said, okay, like if I'm going to get out, I try to do it in June, and you can see dramatically fewer just abruptly after the 4th of July. The next thing you can see is that now we're into September, and the immediate sales is significantly lower. The light red portion, the last bar on the left is significantly smaller. There's still a few that happen, but really it's the fewest immediate sales we've had since the New Year's week, right? When like who's transacting then? And so, it's we can see like that's as rates rose, that's exactly the impact we can see on the market. So for buyers, significantly less competition. For sellers, the only things that go immediately are ones that are really special or have like a specific things worked out in advance. We can also see that we have significantly fewer new listings than last year at this time. And so like the supply is fewer, the demand is lighter, and like that is pretty clear through the data. I actually was very surprised at how the immediate sales continued pretty late into the year. Even after the market cooled, there was still plenty of those happening. It finally feels like we're down to just a handful of those in a given week. And it'll be fascinating to see how the rest of the year goes, and especially as we get into the holiday weeks of in November, it's going to be significantly fewer there. Let's switch to pricing. So the median price of single family homes in the US is this week is $435,000. That's the dark red line here, and you can see how it's grown over the years. You can also see that last year at this time, we were at about a 389, and the last little stretch, that the dark red spiked really big in the first quarter of this year, and that big uptick. What this tells us is that each year we know that home prices tick back as you get later in the year. If you're listing now in late October, you do it at a little discount to hopefully make it move before the holidays. And so prices tick back every year in that cycle. And we know that that's going to happen now. We don't see signals in the data that is implying major crashes of home prices. So a lot of people are, a lot of financial markets around the world have had big corrections, big stock markets and bond markets and crypto, all the things have been, but because we've had such restricted supply, we haven't seen that in home prices yet. And we still could, because there's a lot of turmoil in financial markets and the economy that could, make some of those impacts. And if mortgage rates stay high, it's a significantly bigger challenge. One of the impacts of that, when rates are, at below 3%, and this is actually related to the immediate sales phenomenon, is that it in terms of payments, overbidding by $100,000 or something to win the house, when the rates are 3%, that actually doesn't impact your monthly payment by very much at all. When rates are 6 or 7%, now that overbidding is actually really painful in terms of your monthly payment. So the first thing that goes are the bidding wars and the overbidding, because it's that's where you feel it. Now, I still need to buy the house. I'm having my second kid and I need to move and we need a bigger house. Those life events still happen, but it's much more difficult, and I'm much more hesitant to do a bidding war, to immediate buying war. It's worth much more for me to try to underbid, because that can be very impactful with a little bit of change on the transaction price. So we're going to have that big swing. And then, therefore, when we list the house, it's, we'll end up pricing it slightly lower too, a little bit of discount there. The light red line here is the median price of the newly listed cohort. So each week, when you list homes for sale, you are looking around and taking all of the information, how many bidders were on the last house, how many people are at the open homes down the street. You have that, and whether to advise the seller to, let's list this one at a little discount. And each year, roughly May 31st, the new listings price peaks. So the best stuff with the best pricing comes in the first and second quarter, and then it starts ticking back. And you can see this year, the light red line spiked super fast above the dark red line there. That's illustrating the frenzy. Prices have definitely come back down, but not in a catastrophic way. So these are seasonality. We can expect it to come down. We can expect median home price to be closer to 400,000 at the end of the year. And that'll be about a 10% year over year gain from 2021. So those gains are really still baked in from 2021. And then next year, though, they're not going to be spiking as quickly. They'll likely be much shorter spike and a much less steep. And this will be fun to watch this stat between the second, third, fourth week of January, because we start to see each year, you can see the light red line has its little low point and then a quick spike up. That's the second week of January. That's when the first listings of the new year start coming in. And so when the market's hot, that spike is really quick. And it'll tell us a lot about how 2023 plays out entirely because we'll see it in the data in January and February a little bit. So keep your eye out for the price of the new listings at that time. And like I said, we'll dive into some Colorado data in a few minutes. We'll look at the curves. Here's another place where we can see that inflection point where the buyer demand changed when rates spiked over 5.5%. This is the percentage of homes on the market that have taken price reductions. And normally about a third of the homes, 35% of the homes on the market have taken a price cut. Sometimes that's accidental. Sometimes that's strategic. There are different reasons sometimes it's that crazy seller that, wanted to try to test the market. But what we can see is that if 35% is normal, earlier this year, the dark red line, so each line here is a year again, and the dark red line earlier this year, you can see record few price reductions, meaning even those crazy sellers were getting their offers. And so we only had like 15% of the market had taken a price cut because you're getting the bidding wars and the overbidding and the inventory was so tight. Then we can see this rapid in second and third quarter, like people started cutting their prices because buyers backed way off as rates rose. And that is the price reductions. In August, price reductions had stopped climbing. And then you can see rates spiked again and buyers stopped and the price reductions climbed. And so we're now at 41.6% of the market. So more homes than normal have taken price cuts. This is not a catastrophic level yet, meaning, these are homes on the market now. If you don't have an offer, you do a price cut. Maybe you get an offer next month in November, and then that maybe closes in December or January. And then you start hearing about those transactions in February. And especially the headlines start reporting on those transactions way out in February. But you can see it right now, what's happening. And so at 42% of the homes having price reductions, this is what you might call flat signals for home prices for the future. Like it's not strong enough that there are price increases on the horizon, but also it's really 45, 50%. If price reductions are 45, 50%, that really shows us that buyers are stopping cold and that's going to be bearish for expectations of home prices next year. And so right now, price reductions are climbing because the market got surprised again with this latest spike, and we can see that inflection point. And there are some points, and in fact, Colorado, because Colorado is one of the boomiest markets, many of the Colorado markets are among the highest price reductions in the country. And you can see that it's people rolling in from California bidding on anything, and they stopped rolling in. That like those are like, you can see it happening in the Colorado markets. And it'll also be important for your sellers. Like when you're in the listing presentation, we're going to watch this number for potential buyers. Am I going to get a bargain? What do I have to know about my opportunity to bid? And we can watch where this settles in and starts next year, because next spring, right, is another opportunity. The market resets, and we'll see how cool things are by the end of the year. And price reductions work like this. The best stuff gets listed in the first quarter, second quarter. If it hasn't sold by midsummer, you start taking a price cut. If it's now late in the year, now it's October, if we want to move it before the end of the year, you don't want to get stuck over the holidays. More price cuts happen. But then starting in the holidays, stuff gets withdrawn, or they pulled back till next year. And so price reductions fall, and then the new market resets again in the spring. And so that's this annual curve. So we are actually, late October is when price reductions typically peak. And you can see all the years there. And so it's not unusual that price reductions would be climbing this time of year. They are climbing faster than recent years. And they started climbing again after September 1st. So it's really something to keep our eye on about, like, what is the market telling us is coming for 2023? That's price reduction. I'm going to do a quick screen share here of some Altos data in Colorado and around the country, and then we're going to dive into the Colorado stuff. This is the percent price decrease. This is our Altos, logged into Altos. This is our advanced analytics dashboard, which is brand new and in beta testing for some clients right now. But here's what I want you to notice. So this is a rank of markets with at least 1,500 homes on the market, inventory of at least 1,500. And so remember I said 35% price reductions is normal. Boise here is at 62%. Boise was one of the hottest inbound. Phoenix as a local market is much more commonly to have 40% of the homes with price reductions. And you can see over time, you know, in the peak of last year, only 15%, 40% is normal. And so Phoenix then got over 60%. And that's really bearish. You know, that means 60% of the homes have cut their price because their buyers stopped cold. The Austin, Utah markets. And so here's Denver. Denver is, 54%. Leveled off a little bit, but then started climbing again in September, like that national trend. They started climbing again, price reductions because people backed off. And then you can see the Utah markets are the same phenomenon as a lot of the Colorado markets. You know, the people moving in from the same places, either it's California or it's Texas or it's, East Coast. And then Vegas and the Florida markets, like you can see all of those going through there. And then we get down here somewhere, you can see the Eastern markets have fewer price reductions, had less boomy on the way up and therefore cooling less quickly on the way down. I'm going to come back to this in a minute. We have, in fact, let's talk about price reductions in Colorado. I did all the Denver counties here, and you can see that Boulder has the fewest price reductions at 41% right now. But earlier this year was only 8% of the homes in Boulder. Like, that's a dramatic change. Denver, County of Denver was, 14 and is now at 49%. You can see a little bit of these, and we'll do a few things. We'll look at some of the county level reports and look at their price ranges and stuff, so you can see that where things are happening at the price range. So that's an interesting way to look at it and know where people are buying in the area and where the demand is cooling most quickly. In Boulder, we can see it, at the ultra high end, the $3-4 million houses slowing way faster than the low end. So that's a quick there. I'm going to go back to my slides, and then we'll come back and do some more some more Colorado data. Let's look at the top. All right. One of the stats that you'll see us track is the percentage of homes on the market with price increases. So this is an indicator often of flips, fix and flips, buyers coming in, listing the house is listed here, and it comes back and we can see it high pretty rapidly at a higher price. Earlier this year and last year, we had these spikes. These are way too many, 8% of the homes with price increases. It's a lot of the iBuyers. There's a lot of activity in there that were where they were coming in, and it's so hot. And those are bubble signals. That's when fraud happens. Those are not healthy, having this many time of like 8% with price increases. We're now down at 1.7%, which is less than normal. and it really shows us how the investors have backed off right now. They're not buying. Nobody's doing fix and flip buys right now, and so you can really see that as a big change. And we'll see next spring. Does that start climbing? Do you get a little bit of healthiness, or does that stay lower for a while? I mentioned, I've talked a little bit about a supply, and this is totally true for Colorado as well. So nationally, the biggest thing we can see is that sellers are not feeling pressure to sell. So each line here is a year, and the total number of sellers coming to market that aren't the immediate sales. So the dark red line is this year. Earlier in this year, we had some new listings, but so many of them were going into contract, like they're not on the market. Whoops, they're not on the market because they're bought already. They're already in contract, and so then in middle of the year, May, June, July, all of a sudden we have fewer buyers, and so we have more new listings than any time recently. And then after July 4th, it just started falling dramatically. So that's because sellers don't feeling the pressure to sell, and that's the one. It's one thing that's keeping a cap on price cuts, because there's just not that much coming to market. So there's fewer new listings, but inventory is growing right now because the buyers, you can see it's really a buy side phenomenon, that we have fewer new listings than recent, but inventory is still growing. And that's really an important thing to keep in mind. And then we can also start watching contracts failing. And so we're watching properties that are they're on the market, they go pending, and then they come back and they don't have, there's no backup offers. And so that is another bearish signal, in that it's like, less price support, more opportunity for buyers. And we can see that really few in the spring, 5% of the homes were getting relisted, because there are like backup offers. Even when the thing falls through, there's backup offers, and you move on there. So this is steadily climbing now. I don't know where it's going to be, but you can imagine that, like, when we started Altos in 2006, we watched in Silicon Valley. You could watch as homes were assumed to be stale after 30 days, they'd get pulled and then relisted. And we could watch a third of the homes get relisted in 2006 and 2007. It was a really bearish signal for what was coming, because you could see that these contracts were falling through and they were getting relisted. It was a really cooling signal. So something to keep an eye on there. And then days on market. So climbing steadily back to normal, because things are going so quickly. Median days on market is 21 days across the whole country, all price points. Normally you might have 2 months, 2.5 months, and we're steadily climbing back to normal there. And so I expect us to get, we'll have, more like 2 months next spring. We'll be back into those conditions. It may not actually get back to normal, because we still have fewer homes available. And so things are actually probably still going to go quickly. Especially the good ones are going to go quickly now. And we won't, the junk, even the junk sells in the boom times, even the junk sells really quickly. And so that'll bring those averages back up as those start coming back down. Okay. One last bit of data, then we're going to go look at some Colorado reports. This in your Altos reports. Altos looks at every market in 4 price range segments. The high end of the market may be behaving very differently from the low end. And I'll show you a couple of these. Nationally, we can see exactly where the demand is. And it's, this $360,000, $400,000, under $400,000 range. And you can tell by looking over here at the DOM column on the right, it's significantly fewer than the $1 million homes at the top. And even although they're all climbing, and they all normally do this time of year, but you can see exactly where the demand is. And as soon as you get over 500, it slows down a little bit more. And you get over 1 million, it slows down significantly more. You can see in many local markets, this isn't so much true in Colorado, but especially some of the Rust Belt markets, the bottom quartile actually takes longer to sell because these are like 100-year-old homes that are, small lots and things like that. So you'll actually see that there'll be a sweet spot typically right there at that $300,000 to $500,000 range, which is also where the investors like to buy. Like it's really specific there. By the way, you can go to altosresearch.com, get the data immediately. You can book a free consultation with our team to talk about, like Mike talked about a million things, but I want to look at my local market. Go to altosresearch.com, just book that demo with our team, and you can go get the data in your hands today, in your hands of your clients today. Let's switch over, and I'm going to do a share of more reports, and we'll look at it. So let's start with Colorado as a state level. We can look at the average days on market, the median days on market starting to climb in Colorado. We can look at our price decreases. So ticking up, so 48%. We noticed that some of the markets like Denver was higher, and some of those were above 50%. Those are pretty cooling signals that the market's telling us the buyers are being cooler. That we use the market action index on all our reports, and interestingly, the market action index still calls it a seller's market. And this is what it does, is looks at supply versus demand. And the supply versus demand, because supply is so significantly lower than normally, there's still a lot of, like, the math shows it as a seller's market. Now, that's the message to point out to buyers and sellers, is really not where it is absolutely, but while we have your house listed for sale, keep your eye on the market action index. If this is falling, this little speedometer is falling while we have your house listed for sale, that means your seller competition is increasing, your buyer competition is decreasing, your buyer supply is decreasing. And so that's the market giving us a signal that it's, not just that it's 50 right now, but that if it's falling when we have your house listed, that's the thing to keep your eye on, because that means we might want to get in front of this, so that if I go down and look at the, like we can see normally, so we're at 13,000 homes in Colorado right now. And, normally 18,000. So significantly fewer than even recent years. And behind that is more. It feels like a lot of homes because, we were at so few on the market earlier in the year. And then we can look at the price range quartiles, and you can see, in Colorado, the stuff over a million is taking longer to sell, significantly longer to sell than anywhere underneath that. I have Denver up, and so this is the Denver metro area. We can see a few things. We can look at, here's our price decreases that we were talking about. 2019, there's 48% of the homes that had price cuts. So, there's a lot of investor activity. There's a lot of reasons that Denver normally has more price reductions than the whole country, but also this feels really abrupt, from 8% of the market to now 54. And you can also see the September 1 inflection here went from 50 and started climbing again right as rates stopped. So this little bit of more price reductions is as the rates changed earlier in the year. And in Denver, we can see Denver, like I like to look at the days on market under 800K. So you can also see what you're getting for that. So, the cheapest stuff, the stuff under 500,000, those are 3-bedroom, 2-bath places, 40 years old. When you're working with investors, I like to use the price range segments. Like I bought my house in Silicon Valley. I bought a small house in the old house in the nice neighborhood, and my plan was to add square footage. And what we realized was that you can move from, say, the 600 $700,000 price range to the 750 price range by adding a little bit of square footage, or moving from 485 and adding a bedroom and a bath, you can move up a price range. But you can't move. It's much harder to move from 750 to the 1.2 million because these are on bigger lots. And so you can see exactly what the opportunity you have as an investor in those in those markets. Let's look at Boulder real quick, because Boulder is, it's, unique to itself, with much higher median price. You can see that it's the market action index is much lower, much closer to balanced there. Still fewer than normal, but we can fewer homes available than normal. But we can see, for example, the price reductions climbing in Boulder, but fewer price reductions than the state as a whole. And of course, in the if we look where are people buying in Boulder, like anything over 2 million has significantly longer time to sell. If it's under $1 million, it's still moving pretty quickly in Boulder. Like, that's a real signal to talk to people about what to expect as a buyer, what we're actually looking at right now. You can see, if we look at the market action index, it's been in the last few months just, dropping very steadily. And so this is the message, it's, even though it still says seller's market, like, if this thing is falling when we have your house listed, that's the market telling us it's getting cooler. We may need to do a price reduction if the market tells us that. And then you get them, you say, I'm going to put this report in your inbox every Monday, and I just want you to keep your eye on this one number. And as they do it, then they pick up the phone, they go, like, I've been watching this, maybe we need to get in front of that. So that's what we do with the market action index. And then I also had Littleton open just to pick another random town. We can see in Littleton, it went from so hot earlier in the year down, still, a more balanced, still seller's market. Inventory climbed way up, and is starting to climb in September here again as well. So, and if we want to look down here in Littleton, we can see the big under $1 million, but we can also see even faster under 700,000, where you can see exactly where people want to buy. And so you have a buyer in this market, and they think, well, the market's tanking. I can lowball, I can take my time. But really, if you're buying, if you want to buy a $600,000 house in Littleton, like, it's only 21 days. Like, you need to take action if you want this house. And so that may not be intuitive to your buyers. Like, they're looking at different headlines. Like, this is the power of showing the individual data. Okay, we've done a ton of stuff. I showed a lot of local things. Let's wrap it up there. If you're looking at the data, I didn't have time to go into so much of the local markets, but if you're like Mike, hey, I'm in this part of town, I'm in this part of the state, do we have local data? The answer is yes. We have the data for you locally. Book a time with our team. We'll go look at your data. We'll talk about how you can use it in your marketing, how you can communicate. When you get the reports from Heritage already, so you can use it there, and you can learn how to communicate with the buyers and sellers right now. All right, that's the whirlwind tour. That's the time we have for today. I'll stick around in the chat. We can do a little more in the chat for another minute or two. And then if you have other questions that we didn't get to, feel free to send an email to sales@altosresearch.com, or go to the site and just book time with our team, and we'll look at your local data. We'll do all those things.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mike. That was amazing. You take a very complicated subject and you distill it down into really digestible pieces of information that brokers can then turn around and take back to their buyers and sellers. So we just can't thank you enough for your time today. And everyone, please do dive into these reports. They're great. As Jen mentioned, Heritage, we send the information out every week. Mike does a weekly update. So sign up for those videos. They're about 10 minutes long generally, Mike, right?
Yep.
And so they're quick and they just tell you what's happening in the market. He does monthly webinars that go into more depth like this. So definitely take advantage of this incredible resource. So we appreciate you staying on for a couple minutes if anyone has any additional questions, but otherwise we'll wrap this up. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining, and we will see you next month.
That's great. There's a question in there on new built and resale. If new construction is like community new construction that is not market, is like you have to go directly to the builder, and some of them are in progress and stuff, those will generally be outside of the Altos set. All right, everybody, send us a note.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you so much,
You're
Lael. It's
welcome.
great to meet you guys, or meet you, Lael.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Jill.
great to see you, Mike. Thank you so much again for your time. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Everybody.
Bye, Jen.
Bye.